In the last video, we discussed the research you'd want to do into the prospective employer and industry to ensure you had sufficient background information. In this section, we're zeroing in on the actual interview. The first place to start is with the likely questions you'll be asked. The questions will fall into the following categories. Tell me about yourself. The why questions. Goal questions. Strength and weakness questions. Tell me about a time. Cultural questions. Resume questions. And money questions. Within the categories, there are many questions, but here are some of the typical ones and suggested ways to answer them. Tell me about yourself. This is one of the first questions you're likely to be asked. Be prepared to talk about yourself and why you're an excellent fit for the job. Try to answer questions about yourself without giving out too much or too little personal information. You can start by sharing some of your personal interests and experiences that don't relate directly to work, such as your favorite hobby or a brief account of where you grew up, or your education and what motivates you. You can even share some fun facts and showcase your personality to make the interview a little more interesting. If it feels daunting to generate this information from scratch, you can rely on a simple formula to construct your answer. The present, past, future formula is a way to share key background points while ending on a high note. Begin with a brief overview of where you are now, which could include current job, along with a reference to a personal hobby or passion. Reference how you got to where you are. Here you could mention education or an important experience such as a past job, internship or volunteer experience, and then finish by touching on a goal for the future. Bonus points if you're able to identify how the position you're applying for aligns with how you envision your future. No matter how you choose to respond, write out your answer in advance and then read it aloud to ensure it sounds natural. Try to keep it short and sweet, as you don't want to come across as the type of person who endlessly drones on about themselves. Why should we hire you? Are you the best candidate for the job? Be prepared to say why you're the applicant who should be hired. This is not the time to be modest, although neither should you be conceited. Make your response confident, concise, a focused sales pitch that explains what you have to offer the employer and why you should get the job. This is another good time to review the qualifications and the requirements in the job listing so you can craft a response that aligns with what the interviewer is looking for. What is your greatest strength? This is one of the questions that employers almost always ask. When you're asked about your greatest strengths, it's important to discuss the attributes that will qualify you for the specific job and set you apart from the other candidates. Take the time before the job interview to make matches between your qualifications and the requirements as stated in the job specification. This way you'll always have examples ready at hand to demonstrate your suitability for the job. It can be helpful to remember the tip, show, don't tell. For example, rather than stating that you're an excellent problem solver, instead tell a story that demonstrates this, ideally drawing on an anecdote from your professional experience. What is your greatest weakness? Another typical question interviewers will ask is about your weaknesses. Do your best to frame your answers around positive aspects of your skills and abilities as an employee, turning seemingly weaknesses into strengths. For example, you might say something like, I've always struggled with perfectionism. I truly want to do the job correctly the first time, but sometimes that means I devote more time to a project than is necessary. I've learned to balance this drive with the equally important responsibility of meeting deadlines. You can also share examples of skills you've improved, providing specific instances on how you've recognized a weakness and taken steps to improve yourself. Why are you leaving or why have you left your job? When asked about why you are moving on from your current position, stick with the facts. Be direct and focus your interview answer on the future, especially if your leaving wasn't under the best of circumstances. Always try to put a positive slant on your response. It's better to give an impression that you are more motivated by the possibility of new opportunities than to try to escape a bad situation. In addition, it's important to avoid bashing your current organization, colleagues, or supervisor. An employer is not likely to want to bring someone on who talks negatively about a company. What are your salary expectations? What are you looking for in terms of salary? It seems a simple question, but your answer can knock you out of the contest for the job if you overprice yourself. If you underprice yourself, you may get shortchanged with a lower offer. Here are some sample responses. My salary range is quite flexible. I would, of course, like to be compensated fairly for my decade of experience and award-winning sales record. However, I'm very open to discussing specific numbers once we have discussed the details of the position. My salary requirements are flexible, but I do have significant experience in the field that I believe adds value to my candidacy. I look forward to discussing in more detail what my responsibilities at this company would be, and from there we can determine a fair salary for the position. I would need to learn more about the specific duties required of the position, which I look forward to learning about more in this interview. However, I do understand that positions similar to this one pay in the range of X to Z in our region. With my experience, skills and certifications, I would expect to receive something in the range of Y dollars to Z dollars. I'm open to discussing what you believe to be a fair salary for the position. However, based on my previous salary, my knowledge of the industry and my understanding of this geographic area, I would expect a salary in the range of X to Y. Again, I'm very open to discussing these numbers with you. Why do you want the job? This question gives you the opportunity to show the interviewer what you know about the job and the company. So take the time before the interview to thoroughly research the company and its products or services, company culture and mission. Be specific about what makes you a good fit for this role and mention aspects of the company and position that appeal to you the most. How do you handle stress and pressure? What do you do when things don't go smoothly at work? How do you deal with difficult situations? What do you do when something goes wrong? The best way to respond to this question is to give an example on how you've successfully handled stress in a previous job. Avoid claiming that you never or rarely experience stress. Not only is this difficult to believe, but it could also lead the interviewer to conclude that you've only worked in low-pressure environments and therefore aren't equipped to handle a difficult situation. Rather, formulate your answer in a way that acknowledges workplace stress and explains how you've overcome it, or even used it to your advantage. Describe a difficult work situation or project and how you overcame it. The interviewer wants to know what you do when you face a difficult decision. As with the question about stress, be prepared to share an example of what you did in a tough situation. It's important to share details around this example in order to make the story believable and engaging. That being said, avoid talking negatively or extensively about other people. This can detract from what the interviewer really wants to know about, which is how you can successfully perform in a challenging situation. What are your goals for the future? This question is designed to find out if you're going to stick around or move as soon as you find a better opportunity. Keep your answer focused on the job and the company you're interviewing with, and reiterate to the interviewer that the position aligns with your long-term goals. Now that we've looked at the most common interview questions that you'll be asked, it's time to focus on the questions you should ask the interviewer. These questions are equally as important as the answers to the previous questions, as you can steer the conversation in your favor and reinforce why you're the best candidate. At the close of the interview, most interviewers ask whether you have any questions about the job or company. If you don't have any questions, this can make it seem like you're apathetic about the opportunity. So it's always a good idea to have a list of questions ready to ask and be prepared to discuss them. Here are some examples. How will you measure my success in this role? What do you love about the role you do? How do you define success in your team? If there's one thing you could change about the organization, what would it be? What's the best bit of advice that you could give to someone joining your organization in this position? Why is this role vacant? What is the selection process? And when do you want to fill this role? What is the next step? If you're confident you want this role, at the end of the interview, you may consider telling them that you want the role and why you want the role. Previously, we introduced the interview groups, then we discussed specific questions within those groups. Here are some additional questions you may be asked that will require some thought to answer. Consider how you'd respond so you're as prepared as possible to answer the hiring manager's questions. How do you handle success? How do you handle failure? Do you work well with other people? What can you do better for us than the other applicants? Practice the questions and answers. Now that we've thought about the questions, you need to practice and practice until you're well drilled in the answers, as they will provide you the framework from which you will answer the actual questions. Practice your answers, but make sure you develop ones that are specific and memorable. It's good to practice what you'll say in response to common interview questions. Interviewers will expect you to be prepared, but just because the questions are common doesn't mean your answers should be. Remember, you want to sell yourself during the interview, and no one is eager to buy a humdrum product. Aim to be memorable, so your responses stick in the interviewer's memory, even days after a conversation. As you practice your responses, keep these tips in mind. Be specific. Don't just say, "My work on that project saved the company money." Tell interviewers how much money and what you did to save it. Avoid vague answers. Tell a story. It's easy to say you're a team-playing, detailed-oriented self-starter. These buzzwords come up in job listings, but it's your job to translate them into stories about yourself. That proves you have the quality. So instead of saying, "I'm a self-starter," say, "When I came on board, there was a paper and digital-based workflow for the monthly report. I researched and removed the paper-based workflow, resulting in 10% saving, and also removed duplicate work. I presented my findings to the executive team, and we transitioned to a new digital-only routine the following month. The staff was relieved, and we're all happy to spare the environment." Keep it brief. Don't ramble in your answers. It's better to pause for a second to frame your thoughts than dive in and wind up babbling for minutes upon minutes. Be respectful of the interviewer's time and pay attention to cues. If interviewers seem bored, they probably are. Wrap it up. Following these strategies will help you avoid bland responses. Know what interviewers want. In some cases, what interviewers want is obvious: a candidate who can do the job well and fit in with the company. But this will vary across positions, industries, and companies. To gain insight into employer wants and needs, research the company and industry. If it's been a while since you've applied, analyze the job description and your submission. Think always, what can I do for the company? Will you help them sell more widgets? Resolve customer complaints faster? Streamline a workflow? Or make sure customers are happy? Figure out how you'll be beneficial, then make sure it's clear in your interview questions response. Put your strengths on display. Interviews are not the time for modesty. Rather, it's a moment when it's appropriate to say, "I did X, Y, or Z," or "My work helped do ABC." Avoid saying "we" and make sure to mention your accomplishments. If this feels uncomfortably like bragging, consider framing accomplishments in terms of other people's comments. Here are a couple of examples. "My co-workers voted me the best team player 2 years running." "In my annual review, my manager was really grateful for my organizational abilities." How to rehearse for an interview. Now that you have an idea of the questions, what's next? Rehearsing is one of the best ways to prepare for a job interview. A mock interview with a professional is a great way to learn and practice interviewing skills. In the supporting material, you'll find a link to connect with me to find out more about the one-on-one professional assistance that I can offer. Another way is to use an online interview preparation tool. Both of these are fee-based options, but you can still practice even if you can't afford professional assistance. Do-it-yourself interviewing practice. There are a number of ways to prepare for an interview at home without the help of a professional career counselor or coach or fee-based service. You can practice interviews all by yourself or recruit friends and family to assist you. Know the interview process. If you're new to the workplace or haven't interviewed for a while, know what will likely happen during the interview so you don't get any surprises. Make sure you understand how a job interview works so you know what to expect. Practice answering interview questions. The simplest way to prepare is to create a list of common interview questions and answer each question out loud. The more you practice, the more you'll be prepared to respond during an actual job interview. Use flashcards. Write the questions down on flashcards. By shuffling the flashcards, you'll become comfortable answering questions in any order. Record yourself practicing. If you have a webcam, video camera, or tape recorder, record your responses and play them back. Assess your body language, if you have a video camera, and your answers to the questions. How is your posture and eye contact? Are you fidgeting? Are your answers too long-winded? Do you sound confident? If you do not have a video camera or tape recorder, practice in front of the mirror. Recruit a friend or family member. You can also give a list of questions to a friend or family member and have them interview you. Ask your practice interviewer for constructive feedback. Practicing with a friend or family member will provide you with a comfortable, safe environment for honing your interviewing skills and receiving feedback. Dress the part. One way to make a do-it-yourself practice interview seem more like an actual job interview is to dress in interview attire. Not only will dressing the part make you feel like you're heading to a real job interview, but it will also give you the opportunity to make sure that your interview clothes are in order and you're ready to go. Set up an interview space. It will also feel more like an actual interview if you set up an interview space. Even if it's your kitchen table cleared of clutter, with a chair on either side, one for you and one for the interviewer, it will set the scene for your practice interview to be more formal. Practicing your interview skills will help reduce stress during your actual interview and will allow you to focus on connecting with your interviewer rather than struggling to come up with answers. The more familiar you are with the types of interview questions you'll be asked, the better prepared you'll be for the interview. In our next topic, we'll discuss how to sell yourself in the interview process.